I wanted to talk again about an interesting kind of movement that I'm noticing. I'm seeing more and more people pay attention to. I'm seeing the audience members for these people grow and grow, and I'm seeing third party, I guess distributors or production companies take notice, and it's not a very large group of people. It is kind of, it's a niche content creation, and inside of that niche content creation, it's an even smaller niche group of creators, right?
Yes.
Where are you getting with this?
Basically, and it all kind of centers around this show Friday Night Tights, in my opinion.
Okay.
So it is a live stream that goes on Nerdrotic's channel every Friday evening. And what he does, it's Gary from the YouTube channel Nerdrotic. And what he's doing is he puts out maybe 1 or 2 videos that are actually edited each week. And then he does this live stream and he creates clips from it, similar to a podcast. But he has on other creators that are kind of like-minded or just differ slightly in their personal opinions about movie commentary, about movie reviews, about the culture of entertainment filmmaking, and that. And so it's this nerd culture that's really taking off, and his growth has been huge the past year. I mean, huge. I think he's gone from 100,000 to over 700,000 followers in like less than a year. I think it's something crazy like that.
He's also doing he's got a subscriber battle with another YouTuber, Dan Vask.
Right.
So.
And he's on Friday Night Tights as well, isn't he?
Every now and then,
sometimes
Dan comes on, but he more goes on Tuesday night's Main Event, which is the other kind of thing like this,
the little brother to Friday Night Tights,
right?
I want to watch. So recently, one of the personalities that's on Friday Night Tights a lot, Quarter Black Garrett. He used to be the producer on Steven Crowder's show. I think he's been producing for Gary on Nerdrotic recently.
Yes,
he's recently got himself a exclusive podcast on The Blaze, Glenn Beck's show, co-hosting with Dave Landau, who's a comedian.
Yes.
A most recent episode, Dave was not in because he was doing something. So he decided to bring on Gary from Nerdrotic and another guy, Eric July. Have you guys heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know who Eric is.
Right. I know who he is too. I just wanted to see. He dabbles a lot more into gaming and comic culture, but he still talks about movies and everything.
Well, I mean, he wrote he wrote the comic book.
Exactly.
That got $3 million.
Right.
And the biggest,
we've talked about him on the podcast before.
Yeah, biggest sale for a comic book ever.
Right. So
and I haven't checked up on the sequel to the comic book, but it's doing well.
So there's a moment that Gary has a little soundbite in this recent episode. I want to go ahead and play it and just listen to it, see, and pay attention. I want to hear your guys' thoughts about what's being spoken about, because it really kind of captures the heart of what they're thinking about, big media entertainment against kind of content creation, kind of like this world that they're working in. And this is from Quarter Black Garrett's new show on The Blaze.
Okay.
They don't ever talk about that, and I wanted to kind of bring that into this sphere because The Blaze is so gracious and brought us on and doing this show, and I want to kind of bring that into this culture as well and kind of cross those bridges.
Yeah, I feel like it's being recognized more now, and we're seeing a few people kind of wade in the waters of pop culture because, quite frankly, the pundits on the right have been losing this culture war badly because they completely misunderstand pop culture, gaming culture, comic book culture, movies. They all think it's childish. It's, nerds in their basement. And we're, not everybody, of course, our boy Benny understands it. People who
Benny
understand
Johnson.
it. but it's a really important part of this culture war because pop culture is American culture,
Right.
is this country's culture. And, in Europe too, that's a commonality that we've all had. And that's why we're fighting for it. This is the place where we used to all gather in one place and not worry about the politics and just
Right.
kind of have fun. But that has been poisoned by corporate culture, mostly activism, which has always had like its little place there, kind of like
Yeah.
furries.
Well,
But it's like
I
the
try not to
activist
think about the
furries have
furries.
taken over.
Yeah,
I think that's a good description. The activist furries have taken over pop culture.
Oh,
What?
All right. So basically kind of what they cover is like for a long time, places outside, like especially in conservative circles, conservatives have kind of ignored, what he basically talked about. And also, there's been with the activism, with kind of liberal entertainment, which has always just been entertainment, there's now a big separation. And there's a lot of criticism towards the, more liberal entertainment world because now conservatives are getting involved and commentating on it,
Well, it's also, it's not just that, conservatives and politicians and that they have ignored pop culture. It's that they've very clearly abandoned
Mm.
and made it clear that they don't that it's all, like he said, it's all childish. It's all,
Yeah.
this is, yeah, sure. They're like, anime is for kids and comic books are for kids, and watching Star Wars is for kids. Maybe it's fun every now and then when you're watching it with your kid. But we're adults and we do adult things like drive cars and bed women. And it's like, well, yeah, that stuff's cool too. But also, I like Batman. I think Batman's pretty sick.
Yeah,
I think it's a generational thing of we grew up with technology and entertainment like this where they didn't back in the day as much, and we kind of grew up, and a new generation is growing up.
I see. No, I see it in
so-
our generation. I see it in our generation of, not necessarily of like the more libertarian crowd, but especially still in conservative crowds of, it's like there's no point to it.
right.
I don't really understand.
I think
it. What
that's
do you?
a small subgroup of, I guess, what we're just calling conservatives.
Right.
now.
But when you think of somebody who is conservative, right? They still, even in more like a modern circle, they're not like us. They don't think about movies and TV shows and games the way we think about them. And then if you move into the circles we grew up in, the really conservative circles, they don't understand it at all.
Right.
And even guys my age, friends of mine who, run in the more conservative circles, they're our age.
Right.
And they don't, like, if you say, I think this is a really important that, conservative politicians should be involved in like entertainment and stuff, they just like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to be, how does that affect anybody? I think they're maybe starting to get it,
Right.
but it's not the way we see it. It's not the way Gary sees it of, no, our they're like the left political candidates have made an effort to get their politics in front of people with TV shows, with talk shows, with movies. And they have really just entrenched themselves into modern media. And the right politicians have said, let them have all that artsy crap.
Which it shouldn't have been. That is,
and it shouldn't have
one of
been.
the worst
You
decisions.
abandon, if this is like a clash, if this is a battle between two opponents, you've abandoned that ground.
It's like,
and you've let your enemy get entrenched in there and have control over what is, I think, one of the most important parts of society, and that is what we watch, what we see,
Right.
what we enjoy.
And that's what's interesting about this movement. You know, with people like Gary, with people like Geeks and Gamers, a whole bunch of other creators that are highlighted, you know, on the show, they are giving voice to the feeling for a lot of people online. A lot of people. I mean, I haven't felt as justified in my personal opinion as seeing how many people feel the exact same way on these specific areas about media. And I think in some fashion, we kind of have been given a gift. It's kind of an unfortunate gift, but in this, what he describes as a culture war, using entertainment as a weapon.
Yeah.
The recent leaders, you're saying, the ones that have been entrenched, the liberal media outlets and all these ideologies that are very liberal, are kind of doing a bad job right now telling stories. And so we're kind of been given a gift to say, like, well, a lot of things get sacrificed during this time, but in the same way, we get to criticize it, show why it's ridiculous, and a lot of people are going to feel the exact same way. All of a sudden, you're taking back a little bit of that power of opinion, that power of sway, you know, where the money goes. Because
And it's not just like about you know, what you agree with politically, because I know there's people who on the left who are very patriotic, who are very much about, you know, Second Amendment and protecting their families and a lot of traditional values that, you know, as we understand them. It's not necessarily about, you know, us versus them. It's about keeping unnecessary. It's about keeping all of it kind of out of the entertaining stuff.
Right.
I completely agree that movies, there's always should be you know, political movies. There always should be those kinds of serious stuff, but I don't want to see, you know, I don't want to see stuff that's happening right now in our politics happening in Star Wars.
Right. And actually, you know, I think he puts a good at the end of that clip, Gary says something cool where it's like, this used to be an area, you know, entertainment, nerd culture used to be a place where everyone could gather together. Doesn't really matter what you believed. And it's not that anymore. It's either you have liberal ideologies or you are on the outside. And it's cool that these people that are, because of their opinion, on the outside are creating a culture, a community of people that are getting a lot of attention online. And we know ultimately, I mean, you can have millions of people say, oh yeah, you know, the new Little Mermaid is incredible. And, you know, it's a really good thing for, you know, women and Black women and all that. But they aren't really the ones watching the movie. They're just the talking heads. The people that are the nerds are going to be the ones that watch the movie.
Have you guys heard of the Iron Age?
I haven't. Well, maybe I haven't.
So the Iron Age is kind of groups of people in these circles who are creating comic books and media things, like people like Eric July, people like who else? I guess Chris Gore, and there's some other guys who are involved, guys who were formerly comic book artists for DC and Marvel, who are working with Eric July on his comic book. And it's not just like, let's create alternative media that is free of politics and can be entertaining to everybody. It's also, let's create alternative means of distributing, alternative means of publishing, so that you don't have to go through the traditional publishing people in New York. And that's kind of the point of what the Iron Age is getting these new routes,
new roads.
of publishing. New
Yeah.
roads. Yeah. And it's really important. And I think it's super interesting.
And Eric actually brought up some of that. He probably said the Iron Age by name during that podcast that I listened to. I just missed it, but he was bringing up that exact point where it's basically like, and Gary was seconding that by saying like, look, a lot of these companies can't pivot. They're too big. They're too bloated, and they've been too entrenched in that one ideology. You can't just turn the ship. It's far too big to turn quickly. Whereas creators like this can pivot. They have the freedom to get exposure through avenues like social media and YouTube and live streams, even on their own website, if they have enough people that knows about it. You can create something that is very good, very big, and supports and gets support from a lot of people without having to be this massive inflated company that, you know, the entertainment studio industry has been for so long. And I think there's just a fundamental change. I think it's going to be for all different kinds of worldviews and ideologies, but I think it's not just Friday Night Tights. It's just kind of, that's a show that kind of everyone shows up on.
They have a lot of different guests.
Exactly.
Even people they disagree with.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be, you know, through a very simple live stream show where just they have a ton of people that share their opinions, but it's fun and it's still around nerd culture and it's critical of the bad stuff that's coming out right now. I think it is going to flower into something that's really going to define entertainment for the future.
I disagree with Gary on a lot of stuff.
Right.
He likes a lot of movies I don't like. I like a lot of movies that he doesn't like. And it's that way with a lot of the people that come on to the show of, you're not going to, they don't agree on entertainment, but they all agree that it should be entertaining.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I think it was interesting. I just thought it would be fun to point out and to show that clip.
Yeah.
There's something going on, and if you guys are interested, we want you to watch our stuff, but if you want to kind of watch stuff that is in a similar vein, go check out Nerdrotic.
This is the point.
Yeah.
This is the point of this is having a place for people who don't want to watch the who maybe don't want to get as heavy into kind of because even they get kind of political over at Friday Night Tights and Geeks and Gamers and stuff. And, you know, if you're not wanting that kind of quite that heavy stuff,